Alright, so let's talk about something that shows up in almost everyone's life. Like, there's no problem with starting things. Most people actually start well. An idea comes in and it feels so clear. It feels like it could be the one, and you have all this energy, you're excited, and everything feels like it's possible, at that point. But what usually doesn't get talked about is what happens after that, because starting is not really the hard part. The hard part is what comes next. You know that feeling when something new begins, right? Everything feels so fresh, you're motivated, you're even planning, like you're imagining how this whole thing is gonna turn out. Even the effort, it doesn't feel like it's an effort at that point. You like wake up early, you stay consistent, you even put in the work without even thinking too much about it because it's new, right? But that feeling doesn't really stay. After a while, obviously, it's going to become normal. And when things are normal, it starts giving that, it stops giving you that emotional push or even motivation. And that's where reality starts to kick in. And this part of a process, there's a part in every process that nobody really prepares you for, the middle part. This is the part where things are not like exciting anymore, but you're not at the point where you can see the results. Basically, you're just in between. And yeah, so basically, you're working, but then there's nothing that is really showing. Like, honestly, at this point, you're just putting in effort, you know, but still it feels like nothing is basically changing. You're repeating the same thing over and over again, and that's usually where people start to lose interest, not because they cannot like do it, but because it stops feeling rewarding. Like, it feels like there's no reward. And but honestly, that middle part is actually where everything is being built, and that's where like discipline starts to matter more than motivation, because I'd say that motivation already faded, and results are just not there yet. So it's just not you. It's not now, it's just you, the decisions you have made, the consistency that you're trying to keep, and your ability to even keep going without even feeling like it. And that is not easily, to be quite honest. That's where most things are actually decided. So, to be quite honest, a lot of people don't stop because they hate the what they're doing. They stop because it stops feeling exciting. And when something stops feeling exciting, it starts feeling like it's not working, obviously. So instead of continuing, you want to start something new. Like, you have like a new idea that suddenly feels better than what you were doing. Or maybe you're taking like a different direction that might feel even easier. Yeah, or even a new plan that feels like progress. But in reality, what's happening is basically a cycle where you start something, you lose energy, and then you start something else. And honestly, it can feel like you're being productive at that time because you see there's movement, but in honest truth, on a deeper level, there is basically no results. Like, results don't form like that, because because really results don't really come from starting many things halfway. They come from staying with one thing long enough for it to develop. The middle part, I'd say that it can feel heavy for a simple reason, and there's nothing emotional carrying it anymore. Basically, there's nothing emotional carrying it anymore. Like, for example, at the beginning, you have so much excitement, which is why you want to carry on with this, and with the end, it's basically, you're getting to see the result. However, when you're in the middle, there's like nothing that is showing for that. So you're gonna start questioning yourself things like, is this even working, or should I do something else? Or yeah, something like that. You're basically gonna start doubting yourself, and most of the time nothing is basically wrong here. It's just the stage you are in. There's like no feedback yet, not even visible reward, just repetition. And that can actually feel like nothing is basically happening. Even when something is actually forming, like in a slow way or in a slow manner. But that's why the stage takes discipline, not because it's complicated, but because it's quiet, hey. So one pattern that shows up a lot is stopping too early, just not in the beginning and not even after the results, but somewhere in the middle, Sometimes it's even halfway, sometimes it's even like further than that, but not far enough to actually see what could have become. And that can create a certain frustration at a later stage. So basically, you start feeling like nothing is working when actually things carried along were never carried long enough to work, because most things don't show results like at maybe 20 or even 40%. They start showing, I think they start like, I'd say maybe they start showing after consistency builds over time. For example, you can start going to the gym and okay, say you go to the gym, for example, right? You are yourself are gonna start seeing the results, but other people won't really see what's happening, but your body, you're gonna feel it. And looking at whatever goal that you are trying to reach, maybe you're building a business. Obviously, on the outside, it may look like something is not happening, but internally, there's basically something that is happening. So there's this verse that speaks to this in like a simple way, It says, do not get tired of doing what is right, because in time the results will come if you don't give up. The results will come if you don't give up. That part, if you don't give up, is really a whole message, hey? So, yeah, I'd say that finishing something does more than giving you a result. It basically changes how you see yourself, this because now there's proof that you can actually stick with something, not just start, not just plan, not but finish it, and that changes the confidence in a way that is quiet. So like you stop doubting yourself, you stop even jumping from one thing to another quickly. Yeah, basically you start trusting your own decisions, more than ever. And that basically affects everything else that you do in life. You know how one thing that happens in life, it can multiply in other areas of your life. So yeah, basically that. So even new ideas don't pull you away from things easily anymore, because now there's like experience of finishing, and that is what matters more than motivation. So instead of like always asking what new thing should be started, a better question is what has already been started but not finished yet, because a lot of answers are not in the new beginning, they are in unfinished one, things that are already in motion, or like, I don't know, project that you might have forgotten some ages ago. Maybe you need to go back to that one and check it out. And most of the time, that's where progress is actually sitting, not in something new, but in something that just needs to be continued. So maybe the role shift is not about starting more. Maybe it's about staying longer, long enough for the middle to pass, long enough for consistency to build, something real, because the middle part is where most people quit, but also it's also where most results are made. And sometimes the difference between nothing working and everything changing is just not stopping to A.